All right, let's talk about something that can be, well, just baffling. We're going to decode a really common glitch in how we all communicate, and it's called emotional reasoning. Trust me, once you get how this works, a lot of those conversations that feel totally illogical are suddenly going to make a whole lot more sense.
So let's just dive right in and set the stage. I want to talk about a really common, really human puzzle, and I bet every single one of us has been there.
Okay, has this ever happened to you? You're talking to someone and they are passionately 100% convinced of something. They're arguing for point A. Then, maybe the next day, or hey, even 5 minutes later in the same conversation, they're arguing for point B, the complete opposite, with the exact same fire in their eyes. It's just baffling, right?
The source material we're looking at actually has a great name for this: mental gymnastics. And that phrase just nails it, doesn't it? It's that feeling of watching a line of reasoning do backflips and somersaults, and you're just standing there trying to figure out how on earth can they believe both of these opposing things are true at the very same time?
And that's the question that just rattles around in your head, right? How can A and B both be true? It feels like a logical dead end. I mean, our brains are wired for consistency. If A is true, B has to be false. Simple. So when that rule gets broken, it feels like a computer crashing, a system error. But, and this is the big question, what if it's not an error at all? What if it's just a totally different operating system?
And that question right there, that brings us to the absolute heart of what we're talking about today. The answer isn't found in the kind of logic we're used to, no. It's an understanding that for some people, in certain moments, their feelings are the only compass that matters. So here's the term, emotional reasoning. You could boil it down to a simple, powerful phrase. I feel it, therefore it's true. You see, in this mode, the emotion isn't just a reaction to what's happening. The emotion is the fact. It's the bedrock. It's the starting point that everything else gets built on. This is the crucial thing to get. The whole process is flipped on its head. In this operating system, the conclusion, which is really just a strong feeling, comes first. It's the starting line. And all the logic, all the reasons, all the evidence, that stuff gets built afterwards, specifically to justify the feeling that's already locked in place.
And this chart just lays it out so clearly. Look on the left. That's traditional logic, what we're all taught in school, right? You get evidence, you analyze it, and then you reach a conclusion. It's built from the ground up. Now look at the right side. Emotional reasoning. It starts with a feeling. That feeling instantly becomes the conclusion. And the very last step, go find some logic to back it up. It's a totally top-down process. Two completely different ways of arriving at what feels like the truth.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does the brain even do that? How does it build the logic backwards? Well, there's actually a name for the mechanism behind this.
It's called post-hoc rationalization. Post-hoc is just a fancy way of saying after the fact. And honestly, the best way to think about it is that your mind suddenly becomes a press secretary. The decision has already been made in a closed-door meeting based on a gut feeling or an emotion, and now the press secretary's job is to walk out to the podium and come up with a really convincing speech to justify it to everyone else. Let's walk through an example. This makes it super clear. So step 1, an emotion pops up. A strong one. I feel neglected. Okay. Step 2, that feeling instantly becomes a rock-solid conclusion. Bam, you don't care about me. Now what happens next? This is the key. The brain goes into detective mode, but it's a biased detective. It scans the recent past for any piece of evidence to support the conclusion it already made. And aha! You didn't text back for an hour. See? That fact wasn't the cause of the conclusion, it's just being recruited as proof after the conclusion was already decided.
I think this analogy is just perfect. Imagine you're a lawyer, but you're not a prosecutor trying to find the objective truth. You're a defense attorney, and you've already decided your client is innocent. Your only job is to find evidence to prove it. Well, in emotional reasoning, that feeling of neglect or anger or whatever it is, that's your client. And your logical brain becomes the legal team, scrambling to find any exhibit, any piece of evidence, no matter how flimsy, to build a winning case.
Okay, so what? Why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because understanding this can completely change the game when it comes to how we communicate, especially when we disagree with someone. The real breakthrough here, the aha moment, is when we stop thinking about this as flawed logic or being wrong. It's not about that. It's about recognizing that the other person might just be running a different relationship operating system, as the source material puts it. And in their OS, the rules are just different. The highest priority is emotional truth, not objective facts.
And once you make that mental shift, wow,
It's like a weight is lifted. You suddenly feel less frustrated in arguments because you realize you're not even in a logical debate anymore. You stop trying to win with facts. And that, in turn, opens the door for real empathy, for better communication. Because now you can stop focusing on the flimsy logic and start paying attention to what's really driving the whole conversation, the emotion underneath it all.
So, if there's one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. Trying to argue against the logic is completely pointless. It's like trying to punch smoke. That logic is disposable. It was just created on the spot to defend the feeling. So the real pro move? Bypass the logic entirely. Ignore the evidence they're presenting and speak directly to the feeling. Something as simple as, hey, it sounds like you're feeling really neglected right now. That's when you're finally addressing the real issue.
So I want to leave you with a question to think about. The next time you're in one of those conversations, one of those moments of mental gymnastics, what are you going to do? Now that you can spot emotional reasoning when it happens, are you just going to hear the words, the so-called logic? Or are you going to try and listen a little deeper for the feeling that built the whole argument in the first place? It's a subtle shift, but I promise you it can make an absolutely massive difference.